boy finds a mysterious package near the town's Christmas tree. When he discovers what's inside, his life changes completely. The winter sun began to set early over the quaint town of Evermere, casting long shadows from the massive Christmas tree erected at the heart of the town square. It was a local tradition, the tree standing as a centerpiece of joy, adorned with twinkling lights and ornaments lovingly donated by the townsfolk. Beneath its boughs, presents wrapped in colorful paper piled up, a charity drive where families could leave or collect gifts anonymously. Nathan Fletcher, a 12-year-old with a knack for curiosity, wandered through the square, bundled in his worn red jacket. His mother, Evelyn, worked at the nearby bakery, leaving him with hours to explore after school. Nathan had a habit of making up stories about the people who donated or received these mysterious gifts. This afternoon was no different until something odd caught his eye. Amid the festive boxes, there was one package that stood out. It wasn't wrapped neatly like the others, but instead bundled haphazardly in brown paper. The twine around it was fraying, and a hastily written note was taped to the top. Unlike the vibrant packages beside it, this one seemed forgotten, as if someone had placed it there and left in a hurry. Nathan's heart raced as he crouched by the package. He looked around to see if anyone was watching but found only a few people passing by, their attention elsewhere. His fingers trembled as he reached for the note. It read, "For the finder. Open only if you have kindness in your heart." Nathan felt a chill, not from the December air but from the words. A part of him hesitated. Was this some sort of prank? But his curiosity was too strong. He decided he'd take it to his mother first. Inside the bakery smelled of cinnamon and freshly baked bread, warmth spilling out as Nathan pushed through the heavy wooden door. Evelyn was at the counter, attending to the last rush of customers before closing time. Her chestnut hair was tied back in a braid, and despite the tiredness in her eyes, she smiled at Nathan when he walked in. "Done exploring?" she asked, wiping her hands on her apron. "Not yet," Nathan said, pulling the package from under his jacket. "I found this near the tree. Look, Mom. It has a note." Evelyn frowned slightly as she read it. "Strange. Maybe it's a part of the charity drive." "I don't think so. It's too messy. Can we open it?" His eyes sparkled with anticipation. Evelyn considered for a moment before nodding. "All right, but let's be careful." Nathan eagerly tore the paper away, revealing an old wooden box, scratched and weathered. Inside lay a small envelope, a rolled-up map, and a single photograph of a snow-covered cabin nestled in the woods. The envelope contained a simple letter written in a shaky hand. "To the one who opens this box, this is a token of hope. The cabin in the photo holds something that once changed my life, and I believe it can change another's. If you're reading this, you might be the one to find it. Follow the map, but beware. Some treasures are not gold or jewels, but they are no less valuable. Take care." A wanderer, Evelyn raised her eyebrows at the peculiar discovery, while Nathan was practically bouncing with excitement. "Can we go, Mom? Can we find it?" Evelyn hesitated. They didn't know who this wanderer was or what that something might be. But she saw the spark in Nathan's eyes, a brightness she hadn't seen since his father's passing 2 years ago. A chance for a little adventure might be just what they both needed. "All right," she said, smiling. "But we'll do it together." The frosty morning air nipped at Nathan's face as he and his mother trudged through the snow-covered streets of Evermere. Evelyn had borrowed an old pair of snowshoes from the bakery's storeroom, dusting off years of neglect, while Nathan clutched the map tightly in his mittened hands. The photograph of the cabin had been tucked into his jacket pocket for safekeeping. The map itself was simple, more a hand-drawn sketch than a detailed guide. It outlined a winding path through the forest just outside town, with the cabin marked near the edge of a frozen lake. "Stay close, Nathan," Evelyn said, her voice carrying both excitement and caution. "If this starts to look unsafe, we're heading straight back." Nathan nodded, his breath visible in the crisp air. The thrill of the unknown energized him. He wasn't just a boy on a walk. He was an explorer, and this snowy forest was his uncharted territory. Into the woods the trees stood tall and silent, their branches heavy with snow. It felt as though the forest had been waiting for them, its stillness both serene and unsettling. Nathan led the way, following the faint markings on the map. He occasionally glanced back at his mother, who smiled encouragingly but kept scanning their surroundings. "Do you think the person who left the box actually went here?" Nathan asked, breaking the silence. "Maybe," Evelyn said. "Or maybe they wanted someone else to come here and see what they couldn't." Her words hung in the air, and Nathan couldn't help but wonder what kind of person the wanderer might have been. The letter spoke of hope, but there was an undertone of sorrow in its shaky handwriting. As they pressed on, they came across landmarks from the map. A lone tree bent at a peculiar angle, a small wooden bridge over a frozen stream. Each step seemed to confirm they were on the right path. But then they reached the edge of the forest, and the landscape opened to reveal the lake. "The cabin, there it is," Nathan exclaimed, pointing. Across the icy expanse was the cabin from the photograph. Its roof sagged under the weight of snow, and the windows were fogged and frosted over. Smoke no longer rose from its chimney, and the place exuded an air of abandonment. Evelyn hesitated. "The ice might not be stable, Nathan. We'll go around the lake." It took them an extra 20 minutes to circle the lake safely, and by the time they reached the cabin, the afternoon sun was dipping lower. Up close, the cabin looked even older, with patches of wood missing from its exterior and the door slightly ajar. "Do you think it's empty?" Nathan whispered. "There's only one way to find out," Evelyn replied. Pushing the door open, they stepped inside. Dust motes danced in the faint light that filtered through the dirty windows. The air smelled of damp wood and something faintly metallic. A single table stood in the center of the room, and on it lay a locked chest, its iron hinges rusted but intact. Nathan's heart raced as he approached the chest. There was no key in sight, but carved into the wood was a phrase, "Only with an open heart." "What does it mean?" Nathan asked, glancing at his mother. Evelyn knelt beside him, studying the chest. "Maybe it's not a physical key we're looking for," she said. "Something about this place feels symbolic. Let's look around." Clues in the cabin. Nathan began searching the shelves, which were stacked with old books and trinkets. One book caught his eye, a journal with a cracked leather cover. He opened it carefully, revealing pages filled with sketches, notes, and musings. "Nam, look at this." Evelyn joined him as he flipped through the pages. Most entries were mundane, detailing weather conditions and repairs to the cabin. But one stood out, written in bolder, shakier handwriting. "The heart finds what the eyes cannot see. Leave something behind to gain everything ahead." They exchanged a glance. "What should we leave behind?" Nathan asked, frowning. Evelyn thought for a moment before reaching into her coat pocket and pulling out a small necklace. It was a simple silver chain with a tiny heart pendant, something she'd worn for years. "This," she said softly. "It's special to me, but maybe it's what the chest needs." A leap of faith. Nathan watched as Evelyn placed the necklace on the chest. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a soft click echoed in the cabin. The chest's lid creaked open. Inside was no treasure in the traditional sense, no gold, no jewels. Instead, there were photographs, letters, and a single locket. Evelyn picked up the locket and opened it, revealing a picture of a young girl and an older woman, both smiling brightly. "It's a memory," Evelyn whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Nathan reached for one of the letters, its edges yellowed with age. As he read it aloud, they began to understand the story of the wanderer. A tale of loss, resilience, and the ultimate power of kindness. The cabin seemed to grow quieter as Nathan unfolded the letter, the air heavy with anticipation. Evelyn sat beside him, her eyes scanning the faded script as he read aloud. "If you are reading this, it means you have found what I could not keep for myself. This chest holds the memories of a life I once lived, a life full of hope and love that was taken too soon. I leave these here not to mourn but to inspire. These pieces of my past are now yours to carry forward, to remind you that even in loss, there is always a chance for a new beginning. The locket belongs to my daughter, Clara. The photographs are of the life we shared before illness took her from me. And these letters, They are my words to her, written in moments of grief and longing but never sent. My wish is that they find a home where love and kindness can thrive." Nathan paused, glancing at his mother. Her face softened, and her hands rested lightly on the locket. "She lost her daughter," Evelyn murmured, "and she chose to leave this behind for someone else to find." "But why here?" Nathan asked, his brow furrowed. "Why not take these with her?" "Maybe she thought someone like us might find it," Evelyn suggested. Nathan reached for one of the photographs in the chest. It showed a snowy field much like the one outside the cabin, with a young girl laughing as she threw snowballs. Beside her stood a tall woman with kind eyes. "They look so happy," Nathan said softly. "They were," Evelyn replied, brushing her fingers over the image. "And that's what she wanted to pass on. Hope, even after sadness." A choice to make. Evelyn and Nathan sat in silence for a moment, each lost in thought. The chest had given them something intangible yet profound, a reminder of the fragility and beauty of life. "What do we do with it now?" Nathan asked finally. "Do we take it back to town?" Evelyn considered this, her gaze drifting to the window. The light outside was beginning to fade, the snow reflecting the pink hues of the setting sun. "No," she said, "this isn't something we take. It's something we leave for the next person to find." "But it's so special," Nathan argued. "We can't just leave it for anyone." Evelyn smiled gently. "That's the point. The wanderer trusted the finder, trusted us. Now we have to trust the next person." Nathan wasn't entirely convinced but nodded. "What about the locket? Should we leave it too?" Evelyn hesitated. She opened the locket again, staring at the photograph inside. After a long pause, she slipped the chain over her neck. "We'll take this with us," she said. "Not to keep but to find a way to honor the wanderer's memory. Maybe there's someone who needs it more than we do." Nathan smiled. "Like a treasure hunt." "Exactly," Evelyn replied. Back to town. The walk back to Evermere felt lighter somehow, the weight of the chest's secrets no longer pressing on them. Nathan carried the map carefully folded in his pocket, his mind racing with possibilities. "What if we could find more about the wanderer?" he asked. "What if there's more to the story?" Evelyn laughed softly. "I think we've found enough for one day. Let's start with something simple. A hot chocolate and some rest." The warm glow of the town's streetlights greeted them as they stepped out of the forest. The square was bustling with evening activity, families laughing and enjoying the Christmas festivities. As they passed the tree, Nathan stopped. He glanced at the pile of gifts and then back at his mother. "Do you think maybe the chest was a gift too?" he asked. Evelyn looked at him thoughtfully. "It could be. A gift for anyone willing to open their heart." A new mystery later that night. As Nathan lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the locket sat on his nightstand. He couldn't shake the feeling that their adventure wasn't over. Who was Clara? And why had the wanderer chosen this town, this tree, to leave her memories behind? The snow continued to fall outside, blanketing Evermere in silence. Somewhere in the stillness, a story waited to be discovered, and Nathan was determined to find it. The following morning, Nathan could hardly wait to continue investigating the mystery of the wanderer and the locket. Over breakfast, he laid the photograph, map, and journal entries across the kitchen table while Evelyn sipped her coffee. "Mom, there has to be something in these notes we missed," he said, flipping through the journal for the third time. Evelyn leaned over, pointing at a small entry near the bottom of one page. It was written in the same shaky hand but had a series of initials and a partial address. "To C. Fletcher, Elmwood Cemetery, December 12th. Nathan's eyes widened. "Nom, that's our last name. Fletcher." Evelyn frowned. "It might just be a coincidence. Fletcher's not exactly rare, but it's worth checking, right?" he insisted, his enthusiasm undeterred. Evelyn sighed but couldn't suppress a smile at her son's determination. "All right, we'll visit after I finish up at the bakery. But don't get your hopes up too high. It might not be connected." Nathan grinned. "I bet it is." The cemetery. By mid-afternoon, Evelyn and Nathan stood at the gates of Elmwood Cemetery. The sprawling grounds were quiet under a blanket of snow, the headstones like whispers of lives once lived. Nathan carried the locket in his pocket, occasionally touching it as though it might guide them. The initial C. Fletcher proved elusive at first. They walked the rows of graves, reading the names etched into the stones. Some dated back centuries, while others were more recent. Finally, Evelyn stopped. "Here," she said softly. The headstone was modest, its inscription weathered but still legible. "Clara Fletcher, beloved daughter and friend. May her light guide others." Nathan knelt beside the grave, brushing snow from the letters. "Clara," he whispered, the name fitting the pieces of the puzzle like a key in a lock. "Do you think she's the one in the photo?" Evelyn crouched beside him. "It's possible. If she's the daughter, maybe this is why the Wanderer left the chest nearby. To keep her memory alive." Nathan pulled out the locket and opened it again, staring at the picture inside. "What happened to her?" he wondered aloud. As if in answer, Evelyn pointed to the lower right corner of the headstone, where a small emblem was carved, a snowflake. "That looks familiar," she said. Nathan's eyes lit up. "It's the same symbol on the corner of the map." The snowflake trail intrigued. They returned to the map later that evening, studying the details they'd overlooked before. Nathan traced the snowflake symbol to a faint line leading away from the cabin and toward another location. One that wasn't marked with a name, only a simple X. "That's the next stop," Nathan said confidently. "It's farther than the cabin," Evelyn noted, her brow creasing. "We'd need supplies and warmer clothes. It might not be safe in this weather." Nathan's shoulders slumped, but he nodded. "We can figure it out. Maybe tomorrow?" Evelyn ruffled his hair. "We'll see. Let's take it one step at a time." A stranger in town that night. As Evelyn locked up the bakery, she noticed a stranger lingering near the Christmas tree in the town square. He was tall and wore a heavy coat, his face obscured by a scarf and a wide-brimmed hat. "Can I help you?" she asked cautiously, her breath visible in the cold air. The man turned, his voice low and gravelly. "You're Evelyn Fletcher, aren't you?" Evelyn stiffened, her grip tightening on the keys. "Who's asking?" "I think you found something that belongs to me," he said simply. Evelyn stepped back instinctively, her hand still on the key in the bakery door. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, her voice steady despite the unease creeping up her spine. The man pulled the scarf down from his face, revealing a weathered complexion and piercing blue eyes. His expression softened, though his posture remained tense. "My name's Henry Caldwell," he said. "I think you found the chest." Evelyn's heart skipped. How could he possibly know? "And if I did?" she asked cautiously. Henry reached into his coat and produced a folded piece of paper. It was old and yellowed, but Evelyn immediately recognized the map. "Because I left it there," he admitted. Evelyn's breath caught. "You're the Wanderer?" Henry chuckled faintly, shaking his head. "Not quite. I was a friend of hers, Clara's mother, the one who left the chest. She asked me to make sure it found the right people." Evelyn studied him, trying to gauge his sincerity. He looked tired, his shoulders hunched as though carrying a heavy weight. "And why us?" she asked. Henry shrugged, his eyes softening. "Because you found it. And because something about you tells me Clara's mother was right to trust you." Evelyn crossed her arms, considering her next words carefully. "My son and I are trying to understand what it all means. If you know something, now's the time to share it." Henry sighed, glancing around the square. "Not here. Tomorrow at the cabin. Bring the boy, and I'll tell you everything." Before Evelyn could respond, he turned and disappeared into the darkened streets, leaving her standing alone with more questions than answers. The decision back at home, Nathan listened wide-eyed as Evelyn recounted the encounter. "So he's a friend of the Wanderer?" Nathan asked, practically bouncing in his chair. "We have to go, Mom." Evelyn hesitated. "I don't know, Nathan. Meeting someone out there in the middle of nowhere, it could be dangerous. But he knows the story. He can tell us who Clara was and why they left the chest," Nathan argued. "Please, Mom. We'll be together. And you're always careful." Evelyn sighed. Her instinct told her to be wary, but Nathan's excitement was infectious, and she couldn't deny her own curiosity about Henry's connection to the mystery. "All right," she said finally. "But we'll prepare properly. No shortcuts." Nathan beamed. "You won't regret it." The cabin reunion the next day, Evelyn and Nathan returned to the cabin, bundled in their warmest clothes and carrying supplies. The snow had fallen heavier overnight, muffling the world around them as they approached. Henry was already there, standing by the frozen lake, his hands stuffed into his coat pockets. He turned when he heard their crunching footsteps. "Glad you came," he said, his voice carrying across the cold air. Evelyn nodded, keeping Nathan close as they approached. "You said you'd explain everything." Henry gestured toward the cabin. "Let's go inside." The truth unfolds inside the cabin. Henry removed his coat and settled into a chair. He waited until Evelyn and Nathan had seated themselves before beginning. "Clara Fletcher was the daughter of a remarkable woman named Margaret," he said. "Margaret was a teacher here in Evermere. She loved this town, loved the people. But her greatest joy was her daughter, Clara." Henry paused, his gaze distant. "Clara was bright, curious, much like your boy here. But when she was only 8 years old, she fell ill. A rare condition, something the doctors couldn't cure. Margaret did everything she could to save her. But," he trailed off, the weight of the memory evident in his voice. "What happened to Margaret?" Evelyn asked gently. "She stayed in this cabin for years after Clara passed," Henry continued. "It was her way of grieving, I suppose. But she didn't want her loss to become bitterness. She started gathering things. Memories, lessons she learned, messages of hope, and put them in that chest. Then, one winter, she left it by the Christmas tree and disappeared." "Disappeared?" Nathan repeated, wide-eyed. Henry nodded. "No one knows where she went. Some say she left Evermere to start over. Others think she simply wanted her story to end here." Evelyn's fingers brushed the locket around her neck. "Why did she leave the chest for someone else?" "To remind people what she'd learned," Henry said. "That even in the darkest times, kindness can make all the difference. She believed someone with an open heart would find it and carry her story forward." The next step, Nathan stared at Henry, a question burning on his lips. "And the X on the map? What's there?" Henry smiled faintly. "The last part of Margaret's story. But it's not mine to tell. It's yours to discover." Evelyn looked at Nathan, then back at Henry. "Why trust us with this?" "Because Margaret would have wanted it this way," Henry said. "And because you remind me of her. Both of you." Evelyn's heart swelled at the words, and Nathan's determination only grew stronger. "We'll find it," Nathan said firmly. "Whatever it is, we'll find it." The morning air was sharp as Evelyn and Nathan prepared to set out for the X marked on the map. Nathan had barely slept, his mind racing with thoughts of what they might find. Evelyn, on the other hand, spent the night going over their supplies, ensuring they had everything they might need for the trek into uncharted parts of the forest. "Are we ready, Mom?" Nathan asked, bouncing on his heels as he adjusted his scarf. "As ready as we can be," Evelyn replied, her tone both reassuring and cautious. The map led them farther from town than the cabin, and while the snow-covered forest was serene, Evelyn couldn't shake a feeling of unease. They didn't know what awaited them, and the weight of the locket around her neck seemed heavier than ever. Deeper into the forest, the trail was less distinct this time, the landmarks from the map harder to spot under the thick blanket of snow. Evelyn led the way, with Nathan clutching the map behind her, occasionally pointing out bends and forks in the path. "Do you think it's another chest?" Nathan asked, his voice muffled by the scarf wrapped around his face. "Maybe," Evelyn said, "but it might be something else entirely. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together." Hours passed, and the forest seemed to grow quieter. The only sounds their crunching footsteps and the occasional rustle of a bird taking flight. Just as Evelyn began to wonder if they had taken a wrong turn, Nathan stopped abruptly. "There," he exclaimed, pointing ahead. Through the trees, a small structure came into view. A stone well, its circular frame partially buried under snow. "The map ends here," Nathan said, holding it up for confirmation. Evelyn approached cautiously. The well was old, its stones covered in moss and ice. Around its base were carvings of snowflakes, identical to the one on the map and Clara's gravestone. "This has to be it," Nathan said, his breath visible in the cold air. Evelyn peered into the well. It was deep, but faint light reflected off the icy walls. There was no bucket or rope, only a hollow darkness that seemed to stretch forever. "What are we supposed to do?" Nathan asked. Evelyn noticed a small plaque affixed to the stone, partially hidden by frost. She brushed it clean and read the inscription aloud. "The well of memories holds the truth. To reveal it, leave a piece of your heart. A test of trust." Nathan frowned. "What does that mean? Like, put something in the well?" Evelyn nodded slowly, her hand instinctively going to the locket. She knew this moment would come but felt unprepared for the choice. "This locket," she said, her voice quiet. "It belonged to Clara. Maybe this is where it's meant to go." "But you've been wearing it since we found it," Nathan said. "Don't you want to keep it?" Evelyn knelt beside him, looking into his earnest eyes. "It's not about keeping it, Nathan. It's about honoring Clara and her mother. If this is what the chest led us to, then it's the right thing to do." Nathan hesitated, then reached into his own pocket. He pulled out a small wooden whistle, its surface smooth from years of use. "I want to leave something too," he said. "Dad made this for me before he passed. It's my favorite thing, but maybe it'll help somehow." Evelyn's heart swelled with pride and sadness. She took Nathan's hand, squeezing it gently. "You're a brave boy, Nathan. Your father would be proud of you." Together, they leaned over the well. Evelyn held the locket, and Nathan held the whistle. With a nod, they let the objects drop into the depths. For a moment, there was silence. Then, from deep within the well, a soft glow began to rise. The glow of truth. The light grew brighter, illuminating the forest around them. Nathan stepped back in awe as the glow resolved into a shimmering orb that hovered above the well. Inside the orb, images began to form, fragments of a life long gone. They saw Clara as a young girl, her laughter filling the cabin as she played in the snow. They saw Margaret writing letters by candlelight, her face etched with both sorrow and determination. Then, a final image appeared. Margaret placing the chest beneath the town's Christmas tree, her expression one of peace. The orb pulsed gently, and Evelyn felt a warmth in her chest, a connection to something far greater than herself. "Mom, it's beautiful," Nathan whispered, his voice full of wonder. Evelyn nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. "It's their story, Nathan. And now it's part of ours." A new beginning. As the orb faded, the forest seemed to come alive with sound once more. Evelyn and Nathan stood in silence, the gravity of the moment settling over them. "What happens now?" Nathan asked. "We carry it with us," Evelyn said. "Not the locket or the whistle, but what we've learned. Kindness, hope, and the strength to move forward, even when it's hard." Nathan smiled, his hand slipping into hers. "I think Clara and Margaret would be happy." "So do I," Evelyn replied. Hand in hand, they turned back toward the path, ready to bring the lessons of the wanderer back to Evermere, and to those who needed it most. By the time Evelyn and Nathan returned to Evermere, the sun was setting, casting a warm golden light over the snow-blanketed town. Though tired, they felt a deep sense of fulfillment from their journey. The images from the well lingered in their minds, vivid and haunting, as if Margaret's story had intertwined with their own. As they walked past the towering Christmas tree in the square, Nathan stopped. "Mom," he said, looking up at the glittering ornaments. "What if we left something here, like Margaret did with the chest?" Evelyn turned to him, her brows furrowed in thought. "You mean, to keep her story alive?" Nathan nodded eagerly. "Yeah, so other people can feel what we felt, like they're part of something bigger." Evelyn smiled. "That's a wonderful idea. But what could we leave?" Nathan thought for a moment, then his face lit up. "The map." Evelyn hesitated. The map was their connection to Margaret and Clara, a reminder of the path they had walked. But Nathan's words stirred something in her, a realization that this story wasn't just theirs to hold. "All right," she said, pulling the map from her coat pocket. "Let's do it." A gift for the future. The two of them carefully folded the map and placed it inside a small envelope. On the outside, Nathan wrote in his neatest handwriting, "To the next wanderer. The path is waiting." They placed the envelope at the base of the tree, tucking it among the brightly wrapped charity gifts. Nathan stepped back, a proud smile spreading across his face. "Do you think someone will find it?" he asked. "I'm sure they will," Evelyn said, her voice filled with certainty. "And when they do, they'll know what to do with it." Unexpected news the following morning. Evelyn returned to the bakery while Nathan went to school. The shop was busy, as usual, with townsfolk picking up pastries and bread for the holidays. As Evelyn rang up an order, the bell above the door jingled, and a familiar figure stepped inside. It was Henry Caldwell, his coat dusted with fresh snow. He approached the counter, his expression a mix of excitement and urgency. "You'll want to hear this," he said without preamble. Evelyn wiped her hands on her apron and gestured for her assistant to take over. "What's going on?" she asked, leading Henry to a quieter corner. "They found Margaret," Henry said, his voice low. Evelyn's heart skipped. "What do you mean? Where?" "Not far from here," Henry explained. "Someone visiting the next town over recognized her from an old photo I shared. She's living in a small cottage by herself, not far from the forest." Evelyn stared at him in disbelief. "She's alive?" Henry nodded. "I thought she might have passed on. But she's here, Evelyn. And I think she'd want to meet you and the boy." A new journey later that evening, Evelyn told Nathan about Henry's discovery. His face lit up with excitement. "She's alive? We have to go see her, Mom." Evelyn placed a hand on his shoulder. "I know, Nathan, but we have to remember this is her story. We need to be respectful. She might not want to talk about it." Nathan nodded solemnly. "I get it, but I still want to thank her, you know? For everything." Evelyn smiled. "Me too." The cottage the next day, Evelyn and Nathan joined Henry on the journey to Margaret's cottage. The path was quiet, the snow crunching beneath their boots. Nathan carried the locket with him, unsure if he should return it or keep it as a connection to Clara. When they reached the cottage, it was small and unassuming, nestled among tall pines. Smoke curled from the chimney, and the soft glow of a fire flickered through the window. Henry knocked gently on the door. After a moment, it creaked open, revealing an older woman with kind eyes and a face lined by years of both hardship and joy. "Henry," she said, her voice warm but surprised. Her gaze shifted to Evelyn and Nathan. "And who might these be?" Margaret's kind eyes scanned Evelyn and Nathan with curiosity as she stepped aside, motioning for them to enter. The warmth of the small cottage embraced them immediately, a stark contrast to the biting cold outside. Inside, the space was simple but cozy. A crackling fireplace, shelves lined with books and keepsakes, and a small table set for tea. "You've brought me company, Henry," Margaret said, her voice gentle yet tinged with intrigue. Henry smiled. "Not just any company, Margaret. They found the chest." Margaret froze, her expression shifting from curiosity to quiet awe. "You found it?" Evelyn stepped forward, her voice soft. "We did. It was beneath the Christmas tree in Evermere. And we followed the map." Margaret's gaze flicked to Nathan, who was holding the locket in his small hands. "And you brought Clara's locket," she murmured, her voice breaking slightly. Nathan hesitated, then stepped closer, extending the locket to her. "We didn't know if we should keep it or return it. It's really special." Margaret took the locket with trembling hands, opening it and gazing at the photograph inside. Her eyes glistened with tears as she smiled. "Clara," she whispered, "you've kept her memory alive." A mother's grief. Margaret invited them to sit by the fire, pouring tea from a steaming pot. She held the locket tightly as she began to speak. "When Clara passed, I didn't know how to keep going," Margaret said, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. "She was my everything, my light, my reason for being. Losing her felt like losing myself." Nathan shifted in his seat, watching her intently. "Is that why you left the chest?" Margaret nodded. "At first, it was a way to hold on to her. I gathered her favorite things, wrote letters to her, and tucked them away. But the more I added to that chest, the more I realized it wasn't just for me. It was for anyone who needed hope, anyone who had faced loss and didn't know how to find their way back. Evelyn leaned forward. And the map? The well? Margaret's lips curved into a faint smile. The well was a place Clara and I used to visit often. She'd throw pennies in and make wishes, always the same wish, for everyone in the world to be happy. After she passed, I thought of the well as a way to give something back to the world, to share her wish, even if she couldn't. A shared connection. Nathan's voice was small but firm. We saw the images in the well. You and Clara. It was beautiful. Margaret looked at him, her expression softening. You saw them? Nathan nodded. And it made me think about my dad. He passed away too. But seeing you and Clara made me feel like he's still with me in some way. Margaret's hand reached out, covering Nathan's. He is. Love like that never really leaves us. Evelyn watched the exchange, her heart swelling with gratitude for this unexpected meeting. You've given us something precious, Margaret. A way to look forward without forgetting what we've lost. Margaret smiled, the weight of years of solitude lifting from her face. And you've done the same for me. Knowing that Clara's story touched your lives means more than I can say. A new purpose. Before they left, Margaret surprised them by placing the locket back in Nathan's hands. It belongs with you now, she said. You've already proven you understand its meaning. Clara would want you to have it. Nathan clutched it tightly, his eyes shining with pride. Thank you. Margaret walked them to the door, standing in the light of the setting sun. Whatever you do next, do it with kindness, she said. That's all that truly matters. Evelyn nodded. We will. And thank you for everything. As they made their way back to Evermere, the locket felt warm in Nathan's hand, as though it carried not just Clara's story but the love that Margaret had poured into it. The streets of Evermere sparkled under the glow of Christmas lights as Evelyn and Nathan returned home from their visit to Margaret. Though the evening air was frigid, their hearts were warm, brimming with purpose. The locket, now safely tucked into Nathan's pocket, seemed to carry with it the spirit of hope and connection that Margaret and Clara had shared. We have to tell people, Nathan said as they neared the bakery. Margaret's story, the well, it could help them the way it helped us. Evelyn smiled at his enthusiasm. We'll find a way, Nathan, but it has to be done carefully. Stories like this deserve the right moment. Nathan nodded, though his excitement made it hard to wait. He already envisioned sharing the chest's tale and the lessons they'd learned. A plan in motion. The next morning, Evelyn and Nathan sat at the kitchen table with Henry, discussing how to bring Margaret's story to the town. It needs to be more than just telling people, Evelyn said. It has to mean something, something they can feel and take with them. Henry stroked his chin thoughtfully. Maybe we can tie it to the Christmas tree tradition. Margaret left the chest there because she wanted it to be found during a time of giving. Nathan's eyes lit up. We could make it part of the charity drive. People could leave something meaningful under the tree, not just gifts. Henry grinned. You've got a sharp mind, kid. That could work. The heart of Christmas. Evelyn, Nathan, and Henry worked quickly, organizing a new element to the annual tree tradition. Flyers were printed and distributed throughout Evermere, inviting townsfolk to participate. This year, let's share more than gifts. Let's share what's in our hearts. Leave a note, a memory, or something that represents hope for you under the tree. Together, we can create something extraordinary. At first, people were hesitant. Some scoffed at the idea, while others were intrigued but unsure. But as the week went on, small envelopes and trinkets began appearing under the tree, tucked alongside brightly wrapped presents. A night to remember. On Christmas Eve, the square was alive with laughter and music as families gathered around the massive tree. Snow fell gently, blanketing the scene in a magical glow. Evelyn and Nathan stood near the base of the tree, watching as people added their contributions. A young girl placed a handmade ornament shaped like a heart. A couple left a photo of their family. An older man tucked a small book of poetry beneath the branches. It's working, Nathan whispered, his face alight with wonder. Evelyn smiled, squeezing his shoulder. It's beautiful. Henry joined them, carrying a small box. Thought I'd add something of my own, he said, placing it under the tree. Nathan peered at the box. What is it? A letter, Henry said simply. For Margaret, to thank her for what she's given us. An unexpected gift. As the crowd admired the tree, a young boy approached Nathan. Hey, he said shyly. I saw your flyer. My mom and I left something under the tree. Nathan smiled. That's amazing. What did you leave? The boy held out a folded piece of paper. A note about my dad. He passed away, but he loved Christmas. I think he'd like it. Nathan felt a lump in his throat as he took the boy's hand. He'd love it, he said. The boy grinned, then ran back to his family. Evelyn watched the interaction, her chest swelling with pride. A town united. As the evening wore on, the townsfolk began sharing their stories with one another. Memories of loved ones, hopes for the future, and reflections on the season. The square transformed into more than just a gathering place. It became a space for connection and healing. Nathan looked up at the tree, its lights twinkling against the night sky. Do you think Margaret would be proud? Evelyn wrapped an arm around him. I know she would. The locket around Nathan's neck felt warm again, as though Clara's wish for happiness had found its way to Evermere at last. As the snow continued to fall over Evermere, Christmas morning arrived with a sense of quiet joy. The town square was still, the Christmas tree standing tall, its branches now heavy with gifts, notes, and trinkets left by the townsfolk. Evelyn and Nathan walked hand in hand to the square, eager to see the culmination of their efforts. It's beautiful, Evelyn said softly, her breath visible in the crisp air. Nathan nodded, his eyes wide as he took in the sight. It's like everyone left a piece of themselves here. Beneath the tree, the pile of heartfelt offerings seemed to glow with a warmth that wasn't just from the holiday lights. It was the warmth of a town brought closer together, inspired by the story of Margaret and Clara. The power of stories. As more townsfolk arrived, they began to gather around the tree, sharing the stories behind their contributions. One family spoke about how they had left a toy that their late grandmother had crafted by hand. A teenager shared a poem she'd written about finding hope after a difficult year. Evelyn and Nathan stood off to the side, watching with pride as the town embraced the spirit of giving in a way they never had before. This is what Margaret wanted, Evelyn said. Nathan held the locket in his hand, feeling its familiar weight. I think Clara would have loved this. A message from Margaret. As the morning unfolded, a quiet commotion began near the tree. Henry had arrived, carrying a small envelope with Margaret's handwriting. He held it up, catching everyone's attention. This, Henry said, his voice carrying over the crowd, is from Margaret Fletcher, the woman whose story inspired all of this. The crowd murmured, intrigued. Henry carefully opened the envelope and read aloud. Asterisk, to the people of Evermere, thank you for keeping Clara's light alive. In her short time on this earth, she taught me the importance of kindness, love, and hope. I believe those lessons can ripple out and change the world. You have proven me right. Carry this tradition forward. Share your memories, your dreams, and your hearts. Not just at Christmas, but always. In doing so, you honor not just my daughter's legacy, but the beauty of what it means to be human. With gratitude, Margaret Fletcher. Asterisk. The square fell silent, the weight of Margaret's words sinking in. Then, one by one, the townsfolk began to clap. It wasn't the raucous applause of a celebration, but a gentle, heartfelt acknowledgement of the love and wisdom Margaret had shared with them all. A future filled with hope. As the crowd began to disperse, Nathan and Evelyn stayed behind, gazing at the tree. What happens now? Nathan asked. Evelyn knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. Now we keep the promise. We carry Margaret's message forward. In everything we do, Nathan smiled, holding the locket close to his chest. I think we can do that. From that day forward, the Christmas tree in Evermere became more than just a centerpiece of holiday festivities. It became a symbol of the town's unity, resilience, and the enduring power of kindness. Evelyn and Nathan never forgot the journey that brought them to this moment. The chest, the map, the well, and most importantly, the woman who started it all. And as the years went on, Margaret's story continued to inspire, her memory living on in every note, every gift, and every act of love left beneath the tree. The end.